You're listening to a highlight from the Yishai Fleischer Show on Voice of Israel.
All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleischer Show here on Voice of Israel. This half hour, we ask the question, what is the nature and the state of India-Israel ties? We all know that Israelis love India. They love to go to India. They backpack through India. They talk about India. To them, India is like a second home here. And we know, we've heard through the grapevine that there is more India-Israel relationships, especially in the high-tech sector. But what is it really all about? I found an excellent blog on the Times of Israel and also on the J-Post written by Vijeta Uniyal. And here's what he writes. He writes, "It would be imprudent to expect that India's foreign policy would pivot to Israel at the cost of India's traditional ties with Arab states, in the same way that Israel relations with India do not have to come at the cost of Israel's growing ties with China." It turns out that there's a lot of tension between India and China. So what the writer is saying here is that, India has friends in the Arab world. You can't expect them to totally forget about it. And Israel also has friends in China, so don't expect them to forget about it when they're coming close to India. Goes on, Vijeta, to say, India's much awaited pivot to Israel might not be just around the corner, as some commentators are expecting. At best, it is a fresh chapter in the long and tedious diplomatic engagement between the two countries. However, the efforts to engage India should not be carried out at diplomatic levels alone. India is a young nation, right? You think of India as a very ancient people, but Vijeta writes, India is a young nation with more than 50% of the country's population below the age of 25. That is incredible. Young Indian leaders in business, technology, and education have great regard for Israeli innovation and entrepreneurship. There are groundbreaking initiatives going on in the field of bilateral cooperation between both the countries, and there is certainly room for more. Israel is taking a leadership role in agriculture technology and water management in India. Indian students and entrepreneurs have discovered Israel's startup scene in a big way. There's even a flagship program to empower Indian women entrepreneurs. And the cooperation goes along the lines also of in Indian cities and campuses, which are holding Israeli film festivals, musicians and artists. And he continues, he says, Vijeta says, it is not a coincidence that young Indian leaders in politics, commerce, innovation, and culture, those who want their country to move ahead, are also the most enthusiastic supporters of a stronger tie with Israel. The author is Vijeta Uniyal. He is an Indian writer based in Europe. He graduated from Nehru University in New Delhi and worked for more than 10 years in international organizations, including the German Foreign Office, the Goethe Institute, and the Humboldt Foundation. He is presently a contributing editor for the UK-based Commentator. He also writes for the Times of Israel and J-Post. He's also a fellow of the Lawfare Project. And he is also the founder of Indian Friends of Israel, an initiative of Indian diaspora in Europe and North America to strengthen India-Israel ties. We have Vijeta with us right now on the line. Vijeta, welcome to the program.
Nice to be on the show.
So you wrote these powerful words about the potential future of the Israel-India relationship, and that may or may not be strengthened by the new Prime Minister of India, whose last name is Modi. He is, according to the International Business Times, he is right-wing, pro-Hindu nationalist, Indian politician, and chief of the conservative BJP party, and a man who they say has ties to Israel, which the BJP strongly endorses, and who has turned those ties into what the International Business Times call a financial bonanza for the Western Indian province of Gujarat. And that is the statement out of the Business Times. How do you see Israel-India relations right now?
Well, when I started looking into India-Israel relationships in 2012, it was growing, but it was not. India was not willing to project this relationship openly. We've had great defense cooperation going on, and even in other fields in business, it was growing. But with the change in the government, I think India is now doing it and fully ready to acknowledge that it has a strong relationship with Israel. And our new Prime Minister has come with a huge majority and with huge support, especially from the young people, to change India, and he wants to modernize India according to the plan that he had executed in his own home state of Gujarat, and he sees some key countries which can help him to do that, and Israel is one of them. Canada, Singapore, even US is part of that, and he includes Israel as one of the key partners as he moves ahead, modernizing India.
And
I think we can talk about more. Yes,
the Israelis themselves are very keen on India. They spend time there, and they some of these initiatives that you wrote about, the farming initiatives and helping women entrepreneurs and all that, I think part of it comes not only from a fiscal relationship, but also from an emotional relationship that Israelis at least have to India. Tell me about that a little bit. Why do Israelis fall in love with India, and does that happen vice versa?
I mean, I as an Indians would think it's other way around. I mean, we are in love with Israel. That's how we see it. And I can only talk about my own background, how I grew up. My father was from the defense background, and knowing Israel, he had great respect for how Israel came to be. We Indians, I think in general, identify ourselves somehow with Israel. It's very difficult to say. I mean, if you look at the geography or anything else, we are so different, but somehow we see Israel's narrative same as ours. I mean, ours is an eternal nation. That's how we see ourselves. And Israelis also see themselves in that light. And our connection to the land we have, for us, there is no Hinduism without the land mass of India. And I think the same, I think Jews also feel about the state of Israel. And so these kinds of parallels that run, India and Israel, makes us little sympathetic to what Israel is, a Jewish state, and we understand. I mean, I would like to say we get it, what Europeans do not get when it comes to the Jewish state.
There's also there's the ancient culture aspect, as you said, the eternal nation, which goes back in time and goes forward in time. There's also what I think that sometimes the war that's happening in the world right now is between creative forces and entropic forces. So you have right now, jihadism is, in my mind at least, just one mass of dark entropicism, if that entropy, if I could use that word, which is this force to kind of anti-create, to destroy, to unlearn, to not move forward. Here, what binds Israel and India is this force of creativity. You want to comment on that?
I think one aspect that I left out was, because it's also very contentious, is that the rising tide of jihadi politics or the militant Islam is an existential threat directly to India and to Israel, not in a way. Europe is still not, it's still in the process of realizing it. It's going on, but I think India and Israel get that threat too when they talk about currently the greatest threat, physical threat to our nations as India's democracy or statehood is the rising tide of militant Islam. And this is, I think, also one of the aspects which binds India and Israel together momentarily, although we have more things which will be more lasting. And I believe that sooner or later this tide is going to subside. But how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost us is a big question before us. So you're right, that's one of the biggest threats we have right now.
Vijeta Uniyal is an Indian writer based in Europe. He has worked for international organizations, and he's presently a contributing editor for the UK-based Commentator and fellow of the Lawfare Project and founder of Indian Friends of Israel. Before we leave the topic of the jihad and jihadist politics, I do want to talk about an article that you wrote about Jonah the prophet, and you gave what I think was a great understanding of what was the motivations of Jonah, but then you changed topics quickly and said the tomb of Jonah has been attacked by jihadi militants, destroyed, and they did it in broad daylight in order to do something which we here in the Middle East are very familiar with, which is memory erasure, to try to erase the connection of whoever is being conquered to their land and to their history in order to rewrite that history. Tell me about the story of the tomb of Jonah and this issue of memory erasure that your people are also facing.
Yes, I think people who are following the march of ISIS into the Iraqi heartland would have heard of how the tomb of Jonah was destroyed. And this is not the only tomb or the only historical site destroyed. We are currently hearing about how cultural treasure, historical sites are being destroyed by ISIS. But it's not new. I think it's for us. It's not a new news when in India we hear. People might have forgotten, but it was the Bamiyan Buddha that Taliban destroyed with cannons, and it was not a coincidence. I mean, this is a part of the politics they play of revivalism, which they want to bring in, and history is the main part that they have to get rid of. And this is I think, which is a running theme even in India's historical past. And but for us right now, it's more of reviving it. I think India has, as a nation, I think even now politically understood where we stand. I think majority of Indians I talk to, especially young, they want to rebuild, go back to those roots and rebuild it. So I think our story, and even in the story of Israel, is of a positive note. But currently, with the minorities in Middle East, I think it's a grim picture. I think it's just started. This destruction will take some more time.
It's very interesting what you said about restoration and kind of rejuvenation, renaissance of old culture that kind of maybe in the 80s and 90s, or maybe in the times of communism also kind of was erased. The whole idea of your national heritage, your oral traditions, your connections to a land, that was out of vogue for a while. And now you're saying that the young people of India are looking back in time and trying to draw up those memories in order to rebuild their national identity. That's definitely something that's happening here. One of the great differences between India and Israel is that we were also dispersed off of our land. And so our return to our land also meant kind of coming back into relationship with this land. You never lost that connection. Although an interesting story that we also share between us is the story of Indian Jews. And we had Michael Freund on here to talk about the Jews of northern India, the Bnei Menashe, who are coming into Israel, coming back to Israel after their long sojourn in India. I think one that was a generally positive sojourn. They are now coming home after 2,000 years of being away. Would you like to tell us a little bit about how that looks like from the inside?
Yes, and I actually heard your show with Michael Freund, and from our side, actually, I think when Israel was formed in 48, when Jews from all around saw that the Jewish nation has been restored and they came to Israel, I think India and with an exception, I think the United States were two countries where Jews rushed to the country, not from a land they were persecuted, but with a vigor to revive their country. I think around 50,000 Jews left there were especially young Jews who left India but kept their roots with India. And when I see them through my initiative on social media, when we are connecting India, pro-Israeli Indian community on social media, when I meet Israeli Jews, they have a sense of love and the acknowledgement that India was not a place they left because they were persecuted, but they left because they had a call for the restoration of the state of Israel or creation of Israeli nationhood. So these, I think, the United States is another country where Jews left to Israel, not as persecuted, but with a sense of calling. I think in that terms, India-Israel relationship is a special one where diaspora feels a commitment and love for the country they left as well. So I think it's
Vijeta, Uniyal, what is the future? What do you see coming down the pipes? What's the next main thing that we're going to have to contend with? Or what are you looking forward to in the near future in Israel-India relations?
I think currently what we see is trade relations. Currently, our trade is pegged, I think, at 6 billion. But it's a huge turnaround. I think in 90s we were trading around 200 million a year. The bilateral trade was 200 million, and now it is 6 billion, which is huge. But I think it's nowhere near where potential is. So we are looking forward to the free trade agreement, which should come. We are awaiting it for some time, and I think with the new government, with the new push, if the free trade agreement between India and Israel comes into being, this would be a big boost to trade, and we can talk about in terms of taking the trade to 15 billion. And this in turn would mean that more, because the young people in India, for them to be engaged with Israel, I think trade is the most important part.
Vijeta Uniyal is an Indian writer based in Europe. He graduated from Nehru University, New Delhi, worked for more than 10 years in international organizations. He is presently a contributing editor for the UK-based Commentator, fellow of the Lawfare Project, and founder of Indian Friends of Israel. Vijeta, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Sheshai, for having me on the show.
All right, folks, we'll be back with more great stuff, so stay tuned, stay strong, and stay connected. Shalom.
You are listening to Voice of Israel, premier news talk from the heart of Jerusalem. To listen to more great audio, register for our live streaming broadcasts at voiceofisrael.com. Voice of Israel, bringing Israel closer.